All right, so today's lesson is going to be on using the tool Make to automate data analysis pipelines. So I'm going to be doing this live hacking programming thing in front of you guys, which is a new format for me. So I'm kind of excited to try that out, see how it goes, see if I like it. And the data analysis task I'm going to go through in the next hour. And the goal is to be done this thing in an hour, right? Is that the aim? Okay. Is we're going to analyze the distribution of the lengths of words in the English language. So, and automate that using Make. Okay, so first set up a directory for you to work in. And is this typeface readable for you guys? It's good? Okay. And I'm also going to initialize a Git repository in there. Because yesterday I went through this myself for the first time and then accidentally deleted a bunch of scripts halfway through. And I was like, man, I wish I'd committed those to Git before I deleted them. So I'm going to do that first this time. And you can do that or not as you wish if you're comfortable with Git yourself or not. If you're not, you can just skip all the Git commands. Or you can try it out for your first time. Okay, so it's a new project. So I usually start new projects with a README file because eventually I'm going to commit this to GitHub. And works. All right. And now we're going to start our Makefile. So Makefiles have this canonical name, which is Makefile with a capital M. And when you run the command make, it looks for that file called Makefile in the current directory. If you want to name it something else, you can do that. But then every time you run make, you have to specify the name of the file. So we're just going to call it Makefile. All right. So the first thing we need is to do is download our data. So our data is going to be a, let's see, I just got to find my browser. Here we are. Actually, I'll just start a new browser. That'll be easier. Okay, so I'm going to search for English word list. And unless this is based on my preferences of browsing, the first hit should be this. Well, click on the first hit, see where it brings you. And I get this file wordsn.txt. So we're going to take that, and that's going to be our raw data. And you could just, of course, download that data by clicking on it, but we're going to make this pipeline reproducible, which includes downloading the data. All right, so that file was called wordsn.txt. So this is the file that we're going to create. So this is your first, yep.
Those are running back. Actually, I think there's already a file on the computer that has all the words.
Yeah, that's true. So
I can post it. I'll post on YouTube and you can.
We're just going to we're going to download it off the internet, but the file is actually user shared dict words, and it's got all the English words in it. Yep. So there you go. You can use that file if you want to. But to download it off the internet, I'm going to take that link that we copy and pasted from the browser and download it using curl. All right, so that's our Makefile, and that's a complete and working Makefile. So I'll describe it a bit, I guess. Oh yeah, okay, so the first line is we're gonna make this file called wordsn.txt, and then a colon, and then line feed. And an important bit, and this is the one little annoyance of Make, is that that tab there has to be a tab. It can't be 4 spaces. So be sure that's a tab. And be sure that your editor is not set up to replace tabs with spaces automatically. Once we get past that little hang up, things will get easier. Yeah, there you are. And the next line is a shell script. So that's the anatomy of a Makefile, is these descriptions of what the shell script is going to do, and then the shell script. All right. So are we all caught up to that point?
John, don't be afraid to use the stickies.
Yeah, please do use the stickies. If you fall behind, put up a yellow for falling behind, red for falling behind, yellow for I'm all good. And yeah, do feel free to interrupt with questions if you like.
So what does the first line do? The name of the file you have in the file?
Yeah, so the first line says that the following shell script, the result of it is to create this file called words and English.txt.
Is that like a comment for my sake, or is it actually better?
It's actually productive. Yeah. So I'll show you, and we'll see now with the command line how it's productive. Okay. So here back at the command line, I'm going to type make words and .txt and hit enter. And so this is how that line is productive. That's what says if we want to create this file, that's how we do it. So there you go. We downloaded words and .txt. So
you would not have it just if you had done just make, it would do the same.
that's true, and I'll get to that. That's called the default rule. But for now, I'm going to do things explicitly. And we can see there's 109,000 words in our dictionary that we've downloaded. All right, so back to our makefile script. And there's the analysis we're going to be doing. We could do it in Python. We could do it in R. And today we're going to do it in shell, so using shell command line utilities. If you want, feel free to translate that to Python or a different language if you're more comfortable. But if you want to, you can follow along in shell, which is what I'll be doing today. All right. So we're looking at the lengths of words. So the next line is going to be to create a tab delimited text file, but that includes the lengths of those words. And in this case, there's only going to be a single column, so there's not actually going to be any tabs in our tab delimited file. But a one column tab delimited file is still a tab delimited file, in my opinion. Okay. So this line is going to look just a little bit different than our last line. The last line, we created the words English.txt file just from the internet, from nothing. It spontaneously appeared. This new file we're going to create is going to be wordsenglish.length.tsv, but it requires some input. The input is those English words that we've already downloaded. So that comes after the colon. And I'm going to use awk here to get the lengths of those words. That looks right. All right, let's give that a shot. So, I'll go back to the, did everybody catch that? Maybe we should use sticky notes here. If anybody's still working on typing up that line, put the red up, and I'll wait until the reds are gone.
Do you need a space after this column?
I don't think you do, but I would put the space in. The spaces are useful. One thing I like about make is it's a good gluer together of other languages. So I'm using a little one-line awk script here, but you could accomplish that one-line awk script, like I said, in any language you want that you feel that makes that easier for you. So I use a bunch of different tools in my makefile scripts, whichever one I think will accomplish that particular task most easily. And they're usually quite fine-grained, like little analyses of a handful of lines. All right, how are we doing? Got 2 reds up still? No, that one's down. All right, how are you doing back there?
When I type in this, it says a missing separator.
Yeah, so that's probably the tab spaces issue I mentioned. Okay, I'll come back over there quickly. Back to here though. I'll run the next command here. So here I'm going to type make words in English.length.tsv and runs that particular shell command. And we should have we got a list of numbers. Good stuff. Okay.
So to the left of the curl there, check that's a tab
Oh, you don't get it. Yeah, try that. Okay, now my next guess is going to be what is DOS formatted text file or Unix formatted text file. So if you go over here, I'm just going to check the first file. I found the space and the words and it makes awesome. But I'm trying to convert it to. Oh, I don't see there's a whole. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're doing that. There you go. Perfect. Good. Awesome. Just a missing one. Okay. So next we're going to tabulate these word lengths, create a count a distribution of them, and that's almost certainly better done in Python or Root or R or something. But I'm going to do it here at the command line again just for kicks. So this is going to be lengths and counts. Yeah. And the input to that is the previous file we made. To do that, we're going to sort input and use the shell command unique-c, which is count, unique count, and write that to the output. So one little comment I want to make here is that I feel like the brunt of this makefile script is really just a shell script, and it's really just a shell script with helpful little annotations, little comments that ideally you should maybe have in your shell scripts anyway. So I think make has a bad rap as having a awkward syntax. I don't think it's that awkward. I actually think it's quite elegant. Yeah, it's very descriptive. It's given this file, I can produce this file, and this is how I'm going to do it. Yeah, like any language, you can make nasty ones. So it is up to you to make it pretty, that's true. All right, throw up some red stickies if you need more time. Otherwise, I will move along. Okay, great. And with TSV files, ideally, I like to have the the headers of the columns in that first line, like a name for each column, and we don't have that here. So when we don't have that, I try to encode it in the file name. So that's what I mean by length.count.tsv, is that the first column is the length and the second column is the counts, and TSV is tab separated. And I actually don't remember if it's going to be length then count or count then length. I don't remember what the output of unique.count is, so we'll figure that out when we run it. So we're going to create this length.count TSV file. And I'm going to look at the first few lines to see if it's length then count or count then length. And it is count then length. So I'm going to flip this around. That makes me happier. And we'll run that command again. And I'm going to delete that old one that I made. Okay, so just one more thing. It's sorted kind of a bit awkwardly. Maybe that doesn't matter, but it's sorted lexicographically rather than numerically. Oh, actually, I'm going to make one more change to the shell script, and that's to replace sort with sort-n to make it numeric. And now we're going to regenerate that file again. So we're going to rerun the
So make isn't sensitive to whether you change the commands.
Yeah, so exactly. We're about to see that. So now when we run it, it tells us that this file already exists. It's already made, and it's newer than its dependencies, so there's no need to remake it. It's already done. But in fact, we know that we've changed the make file itself. So to force it to remake it, I'm just going to delete that file and recreate it. So now when we take a look at that file, that's sorted all numerically, which is kind of pretty. And now looking at this file, we can also answer the question, what is the most common word length in the English language? And in this dictionary anyways, the answer is the most common word length is 9. There's 19,000-ish words that have a length of 9. Now, okay, so looking at this file, one thing I notice is that it's not actually a tab separated file. It's not a tab separated file. It's actually a space separated file. So it's perhaps named poorly. And I'm going to use awk to fix that up. And at the same time, I'm also going to put those column headers on top that I was saying I like to have. So we're going to take this kind of not quite a tab separated file and make a proper tab separated file with a header and tabs.
Can you just hang out here for a few minutes after, or a few seconds after you type this in?
Yeah, absolutely. So you should be getting used to this to the syntax now. What we're going to make is this file called wordsend.tsv, and I've gotten rid of the count and length because that's going to be in the header now. It should be evident from the TSV file what variables are in there. And the input is this count length TSV file that we've made. And we're going to tidy it up using awk. So we're going to put a little header on top. The first variable is count, \t is tab, and the second variable is length. So this first line after the begin statement is going to be run just once at the beginning of the file, so it puts the header on. And then the second statement that I'm about to type gets run for every line of the input file. So we're going to print the first column, a tab, and the second column. Yeah, very good question. I'm sorry?
Sorry, never mind.
And this is actually the most common mistake that I make when I'm writing a make file, is to forget that double $, and I'll tell you right now why that is there. Okay, so it's truncated, but I hope you can figure out what the rest of that line is.
Maybe you could just copy everything out and just run the Etherpad just in case someone's behind.
Sure, absolutely. Uh-oh. Escape or something. Command Alt Escape. Oh, wait, it came back. How unexpected. That never happens. Okay. Maybe it came back.
Yeah, Chrome seems to get this far, so maybe can you still go back to the terminal?
Oh, it's just being. Sorry, one sec, just waiting to get control back here. There it goes. Okay. being really grumpy. Hold on. I'm going to close this down now.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
On a MacBook Air. Wow. Whenever I declare tab that bankruptcy in Chrome, I usually bookmark our tabs and then, and then I'll just deal with this later. Okay, so you're still streaming, so that's good.
Okay. Take a detour and tell you about my newborn son then while I close tabs and wait to get control of my computer back. Yeah, so on Saturday I had my new son was born. His name is Jake, and he's like, what, 3-4 days old now? And he's my second kid. My first kid is my daughter, Daphne, and she's 2 1/4 now. So they're all getting along pretty well. Daphne's pretty fond of Jake and calls him her baby. She's been a little less, it's not what I expected. I expected her to be grumpy and around Jake, but that's the exact opposite. So yeah, everybody's happy and healthy and things are going well. And we had the birth at home, which was a good experience. It's nice to be able to have a beer break between contractions. Mom did request a picture of sangria at the conclusion of the birth. And then right at the end of the birth, the paramedics attended just in case. We didn't actually end up needing them, but it was really funny to go from 2 midwives and a doula and Liz and me to 3 ambulances and 6 paramedics and a gurney and equipment and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, it's quite funny. All right, I got my terminal back, so that's a good sign. So let's move on. All right, so how are we with? Oh, please just do it.
Sometimes when you type make something, you get the rule no rule to make target.
Okay.
Usually that's hinting to
so it would usually, my guess would be a typo in either the input or the output file. Okay. Yeah, and I can help you debug that if it seems more pernicious. Okay, so how are we with this line? There's one more red stick. Yep. How you doing, Bill? Okay, well, let me try running this myself at the command line and just make sure it works, because it could very well be a typo in mine, because I haven't run this yet. Yeah, I got the same thing, so it's a typo in mine, so you guys aren't crazy. I should probably do that first before I wait for you guys to copy everything out. So here's a good opportunity to debug too.
Oh, wait. Wait, no. Did you make sure you wrote TSV at the end of that command, like after the redirection, type redirection? Like, did you write TXT or TSV at the end of that?
At the end of this redirection? No, it's TSV. But I'm just gonna, what I'm gonna do is copy and paste from here, see if it was just a typo. All right, sounds good. Yeah, it was. I don't actually know what the typo was, but it was a typo. All right, so there's our proper looking TSV file. Much happier. And this is the pretty typical kind of analysis for me, in that it's like it's downloading data off the internet, it's tidying and cleaning it up. and then massaging it into a well-formatted, tidy, tab-separated values file. And when I get to this point, this is where I would switch to R, which is actually what we're going to do now. And feel free to follow along in R. Or if you're much more comfortable with Python, you could probably try to do this in Python, and it'd be fun to actually see what the result is from both. But I'll be doing this in R. So the next thing I'm going to do is create an R file called, what are we going to call this? I'll call it wordthen.rmarkdown.
So for those who want to try Python, what are you going to be doing with this script?
We're going to plot. Yeah, we're going to do an XY plot. Yeah. And how are we doing so far? This is a good point to take a break and make sure we're all caught up.
Sorry, could you go back to the terminal?
Yeah.
For one more sec? I just fell a little behind.
No problem.
No, not to the.
Oh, sorry, the terminal.
To make it like slide, see what files you're making. Just.
Oh yeah. So we've
the R file.
we've got the TSP file, and I've created an Markdown document.
So what was this $$?
Right. Good question. Sorry, I meant to say that and then I forgot. So the reason for the $$. So variables within make start with a $. So to get a $sign in awk, you have to escape the $, and to escape the $, use a $. So $1 would be the make variable 1. $1 is the awk variable 1. So this is an unfortunate collision that both awk and make use the same $ symbol to prefix variables. It's one of the clunky syntax things of using make and awk together, and you also run into the same issue when you use make and Perl together. Yeah, so that's why the $$ is to get to the awk variable $1, not the make variable $1. And actually, you notice when I ran that command on the command line, now there's only a single $, right? Yeah.
I have another problem.
Yeah.
When I run it, it just prints the count and length, but not actually the other file.
The new words end.tsv file?
Oh, I think that's a type, like, there was a typo. I had the same issue, and then I copied the stuff that was in the Etherpad.
I'll come take a look.
So,
No, it doesn't work.
oh, you got a.
I should have.
It's funny you didn't get the better error message though.
I'll be behind.
Okay, now to our.
I have a question
Yeah.
from the people watching remotely.
Oh, cool. Okay.
On the Etherpad, and they want to know if there are any other characters that we need to escape.
Good question. $signs in shell commands and % in the names of files in the rules, not in the shell commands.
% signs in the names of files.
In the colon rules.
Okay.
Yeah, % is a special character, and we'll actually use that later in the lesson. Off the top of my head, I think those are the only two. Oh, the other thing is multi-line shell scripts can be a little tricky. That's more of an advanced topic, perhaps.
Oh, and you have multiple lines under a target?
Yeah, exactly. So the only thing I'll say about that is that the each line runs in its own shell. So it starts a shell, runs the line, and then closes the shell. So that means, what that means is that things that are internal to the shell, like environment variables and the current working directory, disappear between every command. So for example, if one of the lines is cd, to a directory, then it'll open a shell, run cd, close the shell, and now you're back to where you were. So there's ways to get around that, and mostly it just boils down to putting semicolons and backslashes at the ends of lines to get a multi-line shell script.
And there's one other question, is what's the comment character for
sharp.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just like a shell script.
Yeah.
Commenting.
That's right, and that's a very good point. I should have add some comments to my make file. Let's do that.
So the common character is a hash.
Yeah. Do you really calculate the lengths of words? What's a better word there? Determine? Measure? Okay, awesome. Let's stop there. Okay, so now to our Markdown document. And I find it a little challenging to work with RStudio when the screen is shrunk down to projector size. So we'll try to get something going on here, hopefully. Okay. How many people have used R Markdown before? I just want to know if this is new to people. Or actually, let's say who hasn't used R Markdown before. Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't realize that. So you're getting a double whammy. This is a make and an R Markdown lesson. Okay, in that case, maybe, well, yeah, this is fine. Okay, so this first little bit is like a preamble that just says some stuff about the document you're about to make. You could skip it. It wouldn't hurt anything, but I try to include it because it helps future me.
August 10th.
Thanks. 11th, right?
11th.
Yeah. And the only true date format is ISO 8601. Okay, so that's in fact like a little YAML preamble. So that's in YAML syntax, and that's why it's delimited by those hyphen-y things. Now to start an R segment, it's enclosed by these triple backticks and that little R embraces. So everything inside that is an R script. So I hardly ever just write a bare R script. I almost always do an R Markdown document, even if it's just this, the preamble, and then one chunk of R. Okay, so we're going to read in the data. The library I like to use for that is Reader, which is a Hadley Wickham library. And our data is in a file called wordsenglish.tsv.
There's an archive that's most likely.
Oh, and actually that should have been read_tsv, not table. Probably doesn't make a difference in this case, but. All right, and we got some data. Oh yeah. So the next library we're going to load is dplyr, which is for hacking on data frames, another library from Hadley Wickham. So there's our data, and next thing we're going to do is plot it. So that's ggplot. I'm going to do a line. I think that'll be prettier. Okay, so there's our plot. And to render that to an HTML file, just click on the HTML button up there. So this is what our Markdown does, is it takes this, well, it's a lot like IPython notebooks, if you're familiar with that. It takes this our Markdown input document, which gets converted to a Markdown document by running knitr. And then that gets converted to a PDF or HTML or whatever by running pandoc. And the result is this HTML file. So that includes the code, the output of running that code, like this glimpse command here that shows like a, what the format of the data looks like. And then finally the plot. And it again shows that the most common length of an English word is 9. All right. So now we're going to, so I think this, yeah, what's up?
Can someone like share the R code?
Yeah. Bruno, do you want to paste that on the Etherpad?
Sure.
Thanks. Okay.
Can I do it right now? I think I have other issues.
Can we just look at it for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very slow. I press one button at a time.
Let's. And these 3 R libraries are probably the 3 most common that I use. So reader slurps in the data, dplyr manipulates the data, which we didn't have to do any of here, and ggplot visualizes the data, which is probably like 90% of what I do with data.
What if you don't have R library?
You can, if you don't have any of these libraries, you can type down at the console here, install, once my computer wakes up, packages, and then the name of the library that you want to install, like that. And you can repeat that for any number of libraries. You can also click, if you're new to RStudio, you can click on the variable up in the top right corner there, and it pulls it up in a nice table view. So you can take a look at your data, see what you got. If you clicked on the count, sorted by the count column, for example, you could see that the most common word length is in fact 9.
So what is this EPLYR the library?
Dplyr? Okay, that one I load. In this case, I just loaded it for this little glimpse command, which, I mean, we could have, there's base packages that you could have used for that function as well. We'll, if we have time, we'll use dplyr more later on, but it's used for manipulating data frames. It's great for merging tables, transmuting variables, calculating summary statistics, things like that.
Are they going to shoot?
Yeah.
All right, are we? How are we doing?
How do you change the directory that RStudio is pointing at?
Okay.
Session, and then set working directory. And you can choose a directory there.
And another one I commonly do is to click on the Files tab here beside Plots. And then if you click on the gear, there's set the current folder as working directory there. I often use that.
There's also a function set WD, so you can just like copy it where you want.
So I get an error that says attempt to use 0 length variable.
Okay.
And want to read the words and TSV.
Okay. Let's take a look at that file.
I think that could be from the little ticks. So if you accidentally run the line with ticks, then you get that error coming out. So you see how I don't know what those things are called.
Backticks.
Backticks.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what you did. You're right. Very good.
I did that, so just now, so that's how I know.
Yeah, so it's just that you tried to run that line with the backticks, which is,
Okay. Oh, okay.
yeah, there you go, that's all. And one keyboard shortcut I use a lot is Control-Alt-C. C is for chunk, and it runs everything inside of those backticks.
Oh.
And you can close one set of backticks, then open a new one and organize your R document into different chunks. So actually, in fact, because our Markdown is new, I'm going to do that right here. Normally I have more than one chunk and I break it up into little bits. So this will be load packages, and the bits outside the backticks are actually Markdown. So that sharp is not like a comment. It's like a header of a Markdown. And this one is going to be load data. Well, let's do it all in one chunk this time, but no, I'll do it in multiple. So read data. Oh, and you can name your chunks too, which is useful. So I'm going to do that here. This one is load packages, and these names don't end up in the HTML report, but I'll show you how they're useful in a sec. So this one is going to be read data. This one's going to be plot data. Super imaginative.
And can you run an R Markdown file as a script?
Yeah, you can. In fact, yeah, I'll show you how to do that from the command line, you mean, right? Yeah. Okay. And so one useful thing that, one useful reason to name your chunks is that down here, if you can see it where my mouse is hovering, you can click on that and you can jump to a particular chunk by clicking on its name. I find that pretty useful. And then the other useful keyboard shortcut is Control-Alt-C is to run the current chunk that you're on, and Control-Alt-N is to run the next chunk. So you can just go Control-Alt-N and to like run 3 or 4 chunks in a row. All right. So coming back to the make file now, I think this in itself is a useful make file, and just in that it's like a self-documenting shell script. It clearly describes what the purpose of each line is. It reads this file and it outputs this file. But to see the power of make, really, I mean, this is about automating data analysis pipelines, right? So we could automate this one pipeline, but I think pipelines are more useful when you can take that same pipeline and then run it on another data set. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to do it turns out maybe this paper wasn't quite novel enough, just looking at the distribution of English words. So now we're going to do a meta-analysis and look at the distribution of French words. So pull open a web browser and try to find a similar French word dictionary. And we'll see what we get. And while you do that, I'm just going to continue closing tabs at a very slow pace. I'm going to put that on the list of preparatory things to do before giving a talk from now on, is close all open tabs.
How much RAM do you have?
I guess 8 gigs, I think. I feel like that should be sufficient, but
Yeah.
maybe not. I think it's actually the combination of that and screencasting.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I didn't plug it in. I'll do that right now.
Oh,
I didn't take your advice. Maybe that's why.
is someone trying to file post it in?
Okay. I know I did find one the other day, so if we have trouble tracking one down, I'll post it.
I wasn't zipped.
Reboot faster, so I think I'll just do that. Oh no, because then we'll start the screencast again. All right.
Although try and be careful not to expose any personal file information while.
I did do a little mental inventory of what I had open. Apparently it's my 23andMe profile, so maybe you can learn some interesting genetic details about me. Oh, there's my cursor.
found one that's, yeah, that has a bunch of zip files. I don't know what they're called.
I'm gonna post I'm gonna upload that one.
Yeah.
And then have it upload as a text file. Or .dic
Oh, there's a
file.
password required this one.
I think I found like a list of passwords in French.
Oh, no, there's a password for this.
Okay, I posted in the Etherpad.
Oh, you know what I remember I searched for the other day that gave a good result is this file was called wordsen.txt. So I Googled for wordsfr.txt
And it worked?
and it worked. So that could be a good lead too.
There's a GitHub repo for this.
Oh yeah, and after you have that French dictionary, the goal is to repeat this exact analysis, the same analysis that we did for French words. So you can do that yourself. So the goal is to you can just copy and paste the code that you have, and the goal is to have a makefile script that will do both the English analysis and the French analysis in one makefile script.
Do you want to do that in a different folder? Or,
We're going to do it all in the same folder.
okay.
Does everybody have a dictionary or are we still?
One on the.
Oh, there's one. That's okay.
Tab bankruptcy, I like that term.
Pardon?
Tab bankruptcy, I like that term.
Well, I borrowed it from the dictionary inbox bankruptcy. Like
Yeah.
whenever I'm ready emails, you just like select all marked as read. I'm like, okay, if it's important, you're gonna email me again.
Yeah.
Um, Shaun, just to confirm, so when you put you can't put a bunch of commands on the same line, so that they run in the same subshell, just separated by semicolons or double ampersands?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can use the lines to break a line into two.
Sorry, can you repeat that again for me?
So, it's on subshell, you can run a bunch of commands in the same, so let's say you do cd, and then you want to run a command, because it'll do cd1, and then when you go to the other, another thing that's convenient is you can use the double ampersand, and what that does is it'll only run the second command if
The double
first,
what?
the double ampersand, the ampersand is the end,
Okay.
The fancy N symbol. And the double ampersand means the second command will only run if the first command works. So it's we don't start running commands and then get a bunch of file not doesn't exist errors. The first you can change.
Over here.
We're going to go over wildcards.
Yes. How about everybody take down their green, put up when you've gotten the same distribution, and plot for French words.
Racket line.
It's a Lisp interpreter. All right, I might have control of my computer back. That makes me happy. Okay,
So I'm going to do the French analysis up here on the screen too, so we can use that as a hint, I suppose, if you're still working along at it.
Is GG wants that the answer was always mash things onto there?
All right, so this is the dictionary I used. Googled words fr.text, and it's this GitHub hit here. So if we click on that, this view raw link is the link we actually want. So that's the URL I'm going to copy. And the analysis is going to look just like before. So I'm going to copy and paste all of this, make a second copy of it.
That feels dirty.
It does. And I am going to show you a much better way to do it. And that's the real motivation for using make, is to feel less dirty and less copy and pasting of code. So now I'm going to change all these Englishes to F. Switch and replace all the Englishes to Frenches. All right, so now I can repeat this analysis for wordsfrench.tsv if I did that search and replace well. And last time we ran those commands one at a time, right? We did each step individually. This time I just said make wordsfrench.tsv, and it ran all 4 commands that were necessary to make that happen. So it downloaded the file, it did the awk command, find the lengths of the words, it did the sort unique command to count them up, and then the second awk command to tidy up that TSV file. And the result is our French one, which is not what I'm looking for. What's wrong there? Okay, we got a problem. I'm going to look at why we got a problem. Okay, so my wordsfrench.dictionary is you are being redirected. So this is good. That's why we do these live demos, because it shows you the debugging process that actually happens. It gets hidden when you're just given the final product. So I believe the curl option is -L to actually follow the redirection and download the file it points to, rather than the HTML file that says you are being redirected, which is less useful. And we're going to delete all those files that were just created. So one way to do that is I use ls-t a fair bit, which orders the files by their timestamp. And I want the first 4 of those, right? So 5, I guess. So yeah. And actually, you know what? Come to think of it, I can just do it with wildcard. There, that's easier. And we're going to do that again. No, right. So I should have done that first, actually. If I just said make wordsfrench.tsv, it would have said, yeah, you already got that. We've done that already. You're done. So to force it to rebuild them, you have to first delete the files and then rerun make. See if we get the result we wanted this time. Well, it's taking longer to download. That's a good sign. Yeah, so this time we got a 5 meg file instead of whatever I got before, a 5 kilobyte file. So we should actually get a result this time. Yay, that looks good. So the most common French word length is 10, which is slightly larger than 9 for English. Okay, so the dirty copying and pasting of code, which should have made you all feel quite icky, because now, of course, we've got like this entire function that's or equivalent of a function copied and pasted. So if we had a bug in one, we would have to fix it in every copy, and this is going to quickly get out of hand if we wanted to repeat this for German and Spanish and so forth. So I actually haven't committed anything to this Git repository I created, so I'm going to do that right now.
I'm having trouble downloading the French file.
Yeah, I couldn't do it, so I
Okay,
just downloaded it and then loaded it.
okay.
Okay, and yeah, that's a reason.
Where do you want to need to that?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
like it's
I
not,
can-
like I can download it to my computer, but when I ask Carl to download it,
Yeah.
it just hangs at 0 and then doesn't do anything. Both of us are having that
Huh.
problem. I
Hmm.
think it's just that, pardon? The one up there?
Yeah, so try that. If the one on the Etherpad isn't working, Google words fr.txt, and the first hit should take you to a GitHub repository where you can download a file called fr.txt. The only caveat then being that you have to use that -L flag to curl so that you follow the redirection.
If you click on the link, so you actually just go to the raw version, you don't have to fool around with flags, but I would totally forget.
You know what? Let's do that. You're right. That would work. Oh, TXT, not TSV.
So you would only track the files in the Git repo, the scripts and the main files are Markdown file?
Typically, yeah. I make exceptions for that, and it's all case by case. We've had this debate with Jenny before about what's best to commit. I tend to commit, like you say, the scripts and README files and things, and often a TSV of like the final analysis, the summary results, but not the raw data. And that largely depends on what the size of the raw data is. If the raw data itself is small, then maybe you should commit the raw data too.
Okay, and question, so all the other files are untracked there in the repo.
Yeah.
Do you ignore them? Do you
Yeah.
have them to Git ignore?
I do. Yeah, I usually do add those other intermediate files to Git ignore.
Like using like *KC, *TSV?
Yeah, typically. All right, so Bill's point was that if we clicked on the view raw link here, it would have taken us to the actual URL, and then we wouldn't have had to gone through that fiddly capital L bit with the curl option. So I can replace that other URL here with this one. You'll see they're slightly different. One is github.com and the other is raw.github.com. So if we do that, then we don't need that L flag anymore. We can get rid of that. Okay. I guess we'll commit that to Git. And what Bruno was saying was about adding these untracked files to the git ignore file. So when I run a git status, it says all these files are untracked and maybe you want to track them. I don't in fact want to track them, so I'm just going to tell Git to ignore them. So I'm going to create a file called .gitignore and say I have no interest in star.txt, star.tsv, or star.html. And now when I run a git status at the command line, it will say the only things that aren't tracked are gitignore and words and .rmd. And see, this was actually useful. This is a really good example because the R Markdown file I did in fact want to track. And I didn't notice that it wasn't tracked because it was buried in this long list of things. And this is exactly how I accidentally deleted that file last time when I deleted words, en.star and lost it because I deleted my R Markdown file as well. So really good, like real world example of why it's helpful to use a git ignore file to ignore intermediate files.
Wait, do you want to ignore HTML or do you not want to?
It's up to you, really. It depends on what your intention is. I often commit like an index.html file, and then I push it to GitHub Pages so that you can go to like, you know, projectname.github.com and see it rendered and as an HTML file. So I do usually add start.html to the gitignore file, but then I also add index.html and force that. I'm just going to check how we're doing for time because I definitely want to get to wildcards, which is okay. Good. I think we're doing all right. Hold on. We're supposed to be done. We're 8 minutes over. Okay. Sorry, guys. So in that case, the thing I really wanted to get to was wildcards, which is what we're going to do now, which is to eliminate this duplication of code. I'm sorry I spent like 10 minutes closing tabs so I could get control of my computer back. And oh yeah, I'm going to add that words and our Markdown file. If anybody has to be somewhere, like pick up their kids from daycare, then please leave now. I won't take exception. Okay, so to eliminate the duplication of code, what we're going to do is we're going to keep this download the French bit and move that up here next to the download the English bit. So now we've got download English, download French, do the analysis, and we're going to delete all the French analysis. It all goes away, eliminated. And in these other 3 rules, the analysis rules, in the dependency bit, this file creates this file, the line with the colon, we're going to replace words en with a %, like this. And that's called a pattern rule. So what that says is that not only can this line here this awk script that counts the lengths of lines, not only can that be used for English dictionaries, but in fact, it can be used for any dictionary. It doesn't matter if it's English or French or German. So it's a % in those dependency lines. And in the shell script lines, I wish it were also %. That would be nice. It's not, unfortunately. It's a $*. And that's called the stem of the rule. So what the % ends up replacing, which is going to be words and English or words French, that's called the stem, and $. Is the stem. Yeah. So in the shell script bit, whatever matches the %, the stem is going to get substituted into the shell command. So I'll leave that up for just a sec for you to catch up with that. And there's a lot more variables that start with $, and I think, and maybe that's why Make has this reputation for having a confusing syntax, because all these variables are all punctuation, like $*, $angle bracket, $at, $caret, and you have to remember what they all mean. But if you don't want to remember what they all mean, then really you can probably do most of that with just $. It'll be a little more verbose, but that's really all you need to make like a useful Makefile script is % for pattern rules and $* for the shell lines. And with what you've learned here, you can do a lot with a Makefile script. And there's more to learn after this, but this is like 90% of it. Okay, so we got these % lines in now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete our whole analysis, basically. So everything that's in .gitignore, I'm going to delete. So so that's star.text, star.tsv, and star.html. So now we should just have, what's committed to Git. And I'm going to run make words English.tsv and words French.tsv. Oh yeah, so you can put as many targets. These files that we want to create, they're called targets. So when you run make, you just say, I want to create these files, and you give it a list of files you want to create. So I'm going to run both the English and the French analysis and hit enter. And with any luck, which I don't have today. Thank you. There's a typo there. Downloads the raw data, runs the analysis, downloads the French raw data, runs the analysis, and result. So I'll take a look at those 2 files and just see that they make sense. So we'll just head them, I guess. And yeah, they look good. So that stem rule, that pattern matching, is unbelievably powerful. You can do a lot with that. And that's most of the power of Make. It's it's the self-descriptive shell script, in that it tells you, for each line, it tells you what files are needed and what files are produced. And then with the %sign, with pattern matching, you can run the same analysis on multiple different data sets. So that's really where I wanted to get to today. The only other thing I was going to do was to show you how to render something that Tiffany asked for, which was how to render our Markdown file from the command line. So maybe we'll do that real quick, because that's pretty easy. I'm going to render the R Markdown report. And to do that, we're going to, we've got this file, wordsenglish.rmd. So when we render it, we end up with the file wordsenglish.html. And the input is wordsenglish.rmd. And wordsenglish.tsv. Those are the inputs. We could use pattern rules here too, but I'm just being explicit for now. Yeah, actually, no, let's do pattern rules. You've learned them. They're not hard. So I'm going to replace all of those just with a pattern, just like you just learned. And the command is R script, R Markdown, render, $star.rmd. And yeah, that should be good. Maybe I'll just run it to make sure it is good before you guys all copy it and find out it doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, give me a sec.
You don't have your French RMD, right?
No, I don't, and that's a good point. If we tried to do that same thing for the French report, it wouldn't work. I'll mark down CSV HTML.
It doesn't need to know how to create the RMD file.
Not if it already exists. Yeah. That's considered like an input to it.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't save the file. That would do it. Okay. There you go. Magic. Okay, output created. So now we can open up the report, and it should be exactly what we looked at before. There it is, English word length frequency. So now I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy that wordsenglish.rmd file to make a wordsfrench.rmd file, so we can create that same report for French. And there's a tidier way of doing this, because it's all I'm going to do is just replace en with fr, which is, again, makes you feel ugly for copying and pasting code. So there is a better way to do that, but unfortunately, we won't have time to get to it today. And now I can, and this was a good reason for using pattern rule now, instead of typing it out like I was going to do before, because now we can just rerun this command and make the French report. And there's the French report. So with a slightly different peak. This one's at 9, or 10, sorry, and the English one is at 9. Cool. So that's like 90% of what I wanted to cover today. The only thing I didn't get to was to how to parameterize our Markdown document, so we could have just one and tell it which TSV file to load, the English or the French. That was one thing I wanted to get to. The other was then to just to load in both data sets and merge them and generate one plot that had the two distributions overlaid. But that's not that. Those are two pretty minor things. So I think we got through most of what I wanted to do today, and that's make. I hope it's something you think you can use. Hope it was, yeah.
Could you put those comments you didn't get to?
Sure.
I think the lesson, it's in a lesson, Jenny Bryan's like Stat Backward 5 website link. Is it all there?
I don't know if we did that there, actually. I don't think so. We haven't parameterized our Markdown documents.
Okay.
there. I can tell you that if you want to look into it further, the gist of it, and it's not, is to use called command args, I believe, right? Okay, so this function command args there tells you the command line arguments that were passed to the R Markdown document. So instead of words english.tsv, you can replace this with file name, and file name would become command args, and then there's this, you want trailing only .true, and that just says you're not interested in, it's everything after the R Markdown file. So I'll show you what that looks like now in the makefile script, is that here where we render the R Markdown document, we're also going to pass a file name, so that's the TSV file we want to load. That's it. Cool. Okay.
Thanks, Shaun.
My pleasure.
Sticky notes. Again, we would love to get your feedback. So write something that you'd like to see improve on a red sticky note, something that you'd like to see, that's something that you enjoy on the yellow sticky note, and then just post it on the wall on the way out.
I guess one other thing I would have liked to have done is to take these rendered reports and then commit them to GitHub as Markdown files along with the graphics, so that you could then go to the web page, this GitHub repository that is open to create, so you could see the results of your analysis. Yeah. Okay, so I guess we didn't, but that's cool too.